Chapter 9. Chapter 9 deals with stocks. So Chapter 7, our last chapter, was bonds. This chapter is stocks, so we're going to do a little bit of compare and contrast between the two. Just some information about stocks, and as you read the chapter, you'll definitely see all this information there. A stock represents ownership, which is different than bonds, which represents debt. And ownership implies control, clearly. And so if you are an owner of something, you have some control over the operations. Stockholders have the power to elect the board of directors. The board of directors then selects management. And of course, the board's job is to make sure that the needs of the shareholders are met. And so management is supposed to make decisions to maximize the stock price, which is what the board wants, which is what the stockholders want. So the goal of management for any company, maximize stock price. So way back in Chapter 1, we talked a little bit about intrinsic value of a stock, and then of course its corresponding stock price. Outside investors, corporate insiders, and analysts use a variety of approaches to figure out what a stock's price is worth today. So intrinsic value is P0, the price of the stock today. What is that number? In equilibrium, we assume that a stock's price and intrinsic value are the same. Outsiders estimate intrinsic value to help determine if they should buy or sell or maybe even hold on to a stock. And then a stock with a price above intrinsic value is undervalued, or I'm sorry, I said that backwards. Below is undervalued, above is overvalued. So that's why you value a stock. So outsiders spend a lot of time trying to figure out what they believe the stock is really worth and compare that to the market price of the stock and make buy and sell decisions on that information. So we looked at this earlier, way back in Chapter 1, but these are some of the things that help determine the intrinsic value of a stock. Okay, so the very top thing says management's actions, the economic environment, taxes, and the political climate. So clearly only one thing is really controlled by any one company, and that is managerial action. Everything else you are reacting to, and everything else kind of impacts other businesses the same as it impacts you, depending on what industry you're on, the economy, environment, taxes, political climate, all may have more or less of an impact on you, but whatever the impact that has will be the same impact that it has on your competitors. So on the left-hand side is what they call true investor cash flows and true risk, which makes up the stock's intrinsic value. On the right-hand side is what investors perceive the cash flows to be and what they perceive the risk of the stock to be, and that's the stock's market price. So you look up a stock on the stock market and you see its market price, that's all based on perceived cash flows and risk. A little bit different than the intrinsic value on the left-hand side. So when the two are the same, it's believed, then of course, that the stock is in equilibrium. The challenging part with the right-hand side is different people will have different perceptions of what cash flows are and what the risk is. And there's many models to price a stock, and it doesn't mean that any one of them is wrong or right. It just means that different educated people will have different educated guesses and will come up with different answers. So that's why the stock market can be tough, is because different people have different perceptions about what cash flows and risk are with a company. So there's lots of ways to value a stock, and that's really what we're going to try to figure out in this chapter, is how do we value a stock and then compare that value to the market to make a buy, sell, or hold decision. So you can see there's four methods here: discounted dividends, corporate valuation, price to earnings multiple, and EVA is economic value added. Okay, there's no one of these is right or wrong. We can do some of these under certain situations. Other ones we won't be able to do. Obviously, if a corporation does not pay dividends, you cannot use a discounted dividend model. So the discounted dividend model, what that does, it values a stock in the present value of the future dividends expected to be generated by the stock. And so what you're doing is you're putting a price on future dividends and you're bringing them back down to a price today. You're saying here's what they should be worth today.